Welcome, everyone. This is the first ever Holistic Answers for Autism Roundtable. We're very excited to be able to host this event. We hope at Doman International we'll be able to hold this roundtable every year to bring together some of the brightest holistic minds into the same Zoom room to talk a bit about their experiences with helping kids with autism and other special needs. My name is Spencer Doman. I'm the CEO of Doman International. I'm going to be your host today, and we're really excited to host this roundtable with other holistic practitioners to share ideas and solutions for kids with special needs. So I'd like to just start out by briefly introducing our speakers, but I'll give longer introductions before each of them speak. We have 4 speakers today. So first, we're joined by Dr. Amy Yasko, who is the creator of the Yasko Protocol. We have Bonnie Brandis, creator of Quantum Reflex Integration, QRI. And we have Laura Kaspar, creator of Gemiini Systems. And I'm Spencer Doman. I'll be speaking last. So I'd just like to start out before we get to our speakers and just talk a little bit about how this roundtable is going to work. So first of all, each speaker is going to have 10 minutes to introduce their program and their method, talk about their experience and approach. Now, I'd like to just start out by saying 10 minutes is a ridiculously short period of time. I think the other speakers here, like me, are used to speaking for hours, teaching people for hours about their specific programs. But unfortunately, we don't have that much time today, so we're limiting ourselves to 10 minutes each. At about 10 minutes, I will try to kindly interrupt the speaker, let them know they have maybe a 2-minute grace period to finish up, and then we're going to go to questions from the audience. So if you have questions, whether you're joining us on Zoom or on Facebook, you can start typing your questions into the comments box, and we will do our best to get to them. Now, after all 4 of us have spoken, we'll take about another 30 minutes or so to take questions from the audience. When you're typing in your questions, it would be very helpful, first of all, to know if your question is for a specific person on the roundtable, or if you want your question asked to everyone here. Now, I'd like to just start out by saying, why did we invite these specific speakers today? Well, really, there are 3 reasons, right? So the first is that everyone here is taking a holistic approach to helping special needs kids. So basically, these are drug-free approaches that are really trying to address the root cause issues of kids with autism and other special needs. So this is the Holistic Answers for Autism Roundtable, and for that reason, we wanted holistic practitioners. The second thing is that the people here are innovators. They've all developed something new. And they have worked, I think, for many of us here for decades, trying to find answers for kids. And third, everyone here was courageous enough to accept the invitation to talk. And we're really appreciative of everyone, of all of our speakers joining us today. We applaud them for deciding to come on and share their knowledge and experience with parents all around the world. And we are excited that we have hundreds of parents tuning in from basically all the continents of the world. 2 things that I think are kind of common sense, but I would like to say before we get started. First of all, the speakers here, because we only have about 10 minutes each, they can only give you a brief introduction into what they do. So all the recommendations or information that's given today is for educational purposes only, right? It is not meant to be a medical treatment for your child, and anything that you decide to do with your child at home should be done in consultation with your child's physician. The second thing that I'd like to say is that, the speakers here, all of us, don't necessarily endorse or agree with statements or treatments being used by the other panelists, right? We are here just to share our own personal experiences and take questions from parents. But just like you in the audience, the panelists here today are also here to learn from each other. And so it is important to know that just because one of us gives a specific answer or recommendation, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the other speakers agree or endorse that claim or treatment. Okay, so that is my little talk to get us started. So we are going to go in the following order of speakers. We're going to start first with Dr. Amy Yasko. Then we will get to hear from Bonnie Brandis. Third, we'll hear from Laura Kaspar, and then I will go last. So Dr. Yasko is up first, and I'd like to just read a little bit of an introduction about Dr. Yasko. So Dr. Yasko worked in biotechnology for 15 years and then shifted her focus to using more natural approaches to address complex molecular health issues. She also completed additional training and degrees in natural health, including a doctor of natural health. She's a board-certified alternative medical practitioner and also a board-certified holistic health practitioner, and is a fellow of the American Association of Integrative Medicine. And she's here to talk to us a little bit about the Yasko Protocol. Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Yasko.
Thank you, Spencer, for the opportunity to be part of this first roundtable. I really appreciate that. And I feel it's so important to reach out to parents who are looking for answers, but who might be feeling anxiety or stressed or not really know where to turn when their child might first be diagnosed. And so part of the thought behind the protocol I've developed is to give support on an emotional level as well as on a scientific level. My background is heavily in the research field. And so the protocol I've developed is what I would call data-driven. And so I look at whether it's autism, other special needs, or even adults with other neurological health issues, that these are multifactorial in nature. And what that means is that a number of factors come into play that help to create a less than ideal health situation. The positive of that is that you have a number of different areas you can work to create balance for, and you don't necessarily need to achieve maximum balance in all of those areas in order to see positive progress. And so 3 of the key areas that I look at, one are the genetic susceptibility, the second is the infectious disease component, and the third is toxic environmental factors. So if we take those one by one, when we look at genetics, the pathway I look at is a nutritional pathway. It's something called the methylation cycle. And so the positive of that is if there are imbalances in that genetic pathway, there are natural supplements and nutrients that can be used to help to achieve balance. One of the websites that we have is called Know Your Genetics, and you can input your nutrigenomic, your natural, this is a natural nutritional genetic pathway. You can input data that you have from running any number of nutrigenomic tests, or you could run the test that I've developed, either way. And that site will help to give you some suggestions to work in conjunction with your own doctor about nutrients that may help to balance that pathway. And again, because it's a data-driven protocol, what I like to do is suggest a number of non-invasive health tests, whether it's a hair test or a urine test, a saliva test, a stool test, that you can run at various times throughout the year and monitor if you're making progress supporting your nutritional pathway. And the way that would work is the test can be run through your own doctor, or the site that I use, it's holisticheal.com. You can run a test. I will make comments on it at no charge. And then you go to your own healthcare professional and work with your healthcare professional to determine what of the suggestions that I've made or nutritional supplements I've suggested, you and your own healthcare professional decide that you want to include in your healthcare program. Now, the second piece would be the infectious disease component. And so we can run gut tests, saliva tests, urine tests to look and see what microbes might be out of balance in your system. And in particular for autism, oftentimes the gut is particularly out of balance. And so again, by running non-invasive tests, I can make comments on those tests. I fill out a supplement form for you. And then you take that information and you work with your own healthcare professional to determine which of those suggestions you collectively want to implement. And again, I do this and I make my comments at no charge because my goal is to help parents to get their children in the best possible health. And I want you to be able to spend your funds on your own doctor, on supplements, and on testing. And so my way of helping you to help your child is to give of my time. I'm blessed. I have 3 healthy daughters, and I know in my heart how I would feel if one of my children weren't as healthy as I would like them to be. So again, that's the idea behind a data-driven protocol, looking at multifactorial conditions, looking at nutrigenomic testing, looking at testing for microbes. And then the third piece we want to look at is toxins in the environment. And for the most part, what we're looking at is toxic metals. We can look for those in hair, in urine, and in stool. So again, looking at data, adding supplements, and then going back and rerunning those tests to make sure that what you're doing is making a difference. And if it is, great. If it's not, then we readjust the supplement plan, we readjust the program, and we customize it both to what an individual's needs are, but also based on data from that individual over time, because the supplements that may make the most sense at day 1 may or may not be the supplements that make the most sense 6 months down the road. And so that's why the testing aspect is important, but also looking at the supplements that you're utilizing. Because again, we're looking at a nutritional pathway, we're looking at imbalances in the gut and elsewhere, and we're looking at toxic metals. And the part of the reason that looking at the infectious agents in your body is so critical is that both bacteria and viruses are able to hold on to toxic metals. And so in my personal opinion and experience, simply going after metals without addressing underlying factors such as the nutrigenomics, as well as the infectious agents, you need all of those pieces to come together in order to be able to achieve the kind of health balance that you would like. And again, everyone's a little bit different. Every individual is unique. And even when I've worked with identical twins who have identical genetics, what's going on in their systems in terms of infectious agents or toxic metals may be slightly different. And that's why we want to continually look at data and make adjustments based on those factors. Another thing I did want to mention is all supplements aren't created equal. And so you don't necessarily need to be getting your supplements from the source that I choose. But if you're not achieving the health results you want, then it's a time to revisit and look at what the quality, the storage, the shipping, where you're getting your supplements. One way to look at it is supplements are, for the most part, from herbs or from fruits or from vegetables. And so you wouldn't have your lettuce or think of peaches, which bruise so easily. You wouldn't use something that was sitting out of the refrigerator and bounced around in a carton for a month and choose to eat that. And so again, going back to the data, if what you're using and the sources you're using are working for you, then that's fantastic. And if it's not, then you want to go back and revisit the nutrients that you're using with your own healthcare professional to make sure that the time you're taking to do all of this is working in terms of using things that are going to benefit you the most. The other piece besides the science for my protocol is what I call the caring. I really care about every individual that I work with. And so we have a chat group that has tens of thousands of parents on it. I answer questions personally, the moderators answer questions, and parents can talk to each other. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a science question. It can just be needing someone to hold your hand or give you emotional support across the computer screen, across the internet. And that's just as important as the science that I share is the caring for both the parents who are under a lot of stress, as well as the children who are following this protocol.
Great. So, Dr. Yasko, thanks so much. So if anyone has a question for Dr. Yasko, go ahead and type it into the chat box on Zoom or on Facebook, and I'll make sure to ask it to her. So, Dr. Yasko, I'm sure someone will ask this. So if someone wants to learn more about what you do, where's the best place for them to go?
The most basic site to go to is a site called Recover My Child. And that gives the most basic information. Almost all of the books I've written are available through links for free on that site. All of the PowerPoints that I've given in the past are available for free. And I just want to explain that Recover My Child doesn't mean that I believe children need to be recovered. It's about recovering your health. And so when we talk about balancing the methylation cycle from a nutritional standpoint, when we talk about recovering or balancing the gut, when we talk about addressing toxic metals, we're talking about reaching a balance in your system and helping to recover imbalances in the body, not that I feel that anyone needs to be recovered per se. I think every child and adult is an individual. They have their individual health concerns, their health needs, and they need to be treated as such with an extreme level of respect and individuality. So that would be the most basic site. Another site is dramyyasko.com. That has slightly more complex information on there, because the protocol I use is not only designed for children with special needs and autism, but also we have many adults on the program with neurological concerns, as well as adults who are just concerned about long-term health and wellness. And I did mention Know Your Genetics. If you've run nutrigenomic testing through one of the other sites, or with the nutrigenomic test I designed, there's also information there. The supplements that I utilize, that would be and the tests would be holisticheal.com. And all of those websites have links to each other, so that utilizing any one of those will help you to get to the other sites if you need.
Great. And I think we only have time for one other question. One mom actually pre-submitted a question for you, and she's asking about a child with autism who now is entering puberty. And she asked if you felt that you could help a child who is dealing with anxiety or depression entering puberty. Any thoughts about that?
Yes, that would be something that I receive files on a very regular basis. Oftentimes, even if an individual is doing very well and very well balanced prior to puberty, that entering puberty can kind of throw things a little off kilter again. And so that is something that I do work with on a very regular basis.
Great, thank you so much. Well, if you haven't been able to get in your question for Dr. Yasko yet, go ahead and type it in the chat box, and we will get back to questions at the very end of all the talks. Thanks, Dr. Yasko.
Thank you, Spencer.
Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to Bonnie Brandis. And Bonnie founded Quantum Reflex Integration, also known as QRI, a home program for integrating primitive reflexes using light and frequencies, and it's used in over 100 countries around the world. QRI uses cold laser and acupuncture points to integrate primitive reflexes necessary for neurological development. Thanks for joining us, Bonnie. And Bonnie, I think you're going to have to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you are. Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
and I'm going to pull up your PowerPoint.
Okay.
Can you see your PowerPoint on the screen?
I can, yes.
Perfect.
All right.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
So today I'm going to introduce you a brief introduction to quantum reflex integration. And this is a program that I've been developing over the years that helps integrate the primitive reflexes, which we'll discuss a little bit more if you haven't heard of them. So do you want to go to the next slide, please? So this is a mother that we worked with about 6 months ago. And we have so many testimonials on our Facebook group. But this is one mother telling about how her daughter woke up and looked her in the eye and gave her the first hug ever. And so this is why this is so rewarding to me and the ladies that I work with, because we know we're able to get results faster than we could prior to using cold laser. And she told her mother, I like this. And she said she'd never hugged her before and actually put her arms around her and squeezed. And as we go into the primitive reflexes, we'll see that they are so important. They're kind of the foundation for so much about us and the things we're able to do. Next slide, please. So what is quantum reflex integration? It is, QRI is a program, and we're using cold laser to integrate primitive reflexes. And so we're using acupuncture points, we're using patterns, and frequencies that actually rebuild the nervous system. And so we're really excited about the results we're getting and how it's all coming together. And so why is reflex integration so important? As I mentioned, we'll talk about that. And then we add the cold laser. So next slide. So when we use our cold laser on primitive reflexes, we're using light, but something we're doing much different than what other cold lasers do. We actually have sound frequencies. And we found, especially in children that are on the spectrum, this is much more effective. I've used many other lasers prior to this when I was experimenting with the program. And when I developed my own laser and added the sound, that just really made the difference for children with autism. And then we're using frequencies. And we have specific points and patterns. And we're using the cold laser. People probably don't know that you can do acupuncture with cold laser, and it only takes 15 to 20 seconds on an acupuncture point where it would take 15 to 20 minutes typically. So next slide. So primitive reflexes are actually the neurological connection that we need for survival in the beginning. So they develop in the womb, and they're really important when it comes to either for nursing or our safety, how we respond, but they have a second important job, and that's for the neurological development of the fetus. They develop in the womb, and as the child goes, it just kind of like in my book, I taught about a symphony and the rhythm that comes with it and how they develop if they develop in harmony, then all is well. If not, then it's not going to work that well. But what happens is they develop and determine the level of our cognition, how we're able to think, how we're able to interact with other people, and even our psychological health. Because when it's not working, then the nervous system can be stressed. And then the psychological health is damaged, and it affects the child in so many ways. They become frustrated and lose their self-esteem. Primitive reflexes also affect movement and sensory integration, and how we move around through the world, where we know we're in space, proprioception, whether we can run, walk, crawl, all these different things are related to primitive reflexes. We know that we have other things that are important, like nutrition and things like that are just as important, but the primitive reflexes rely on how much is a child able to move, how much movement do they get. We know that's a problem now in our society, and also how they react with sensory integration. Do they overreact? Or sounds bothering them? So many things, you may walk up to a child with autism and you get in their space and they respond without thinking. They may hit, pinch, bite, because they don't have the ability to stop and think about it, because their sensory integration is bothering them. And we go on to speech and how speech develops in the womb and not in the womb, and develops afterwards. And how they come out, are they able to babble? Are they doing all these different things that relate to Laura's program? And so that's a really good compliment. So it helps them, and as I mentioned, pause and decide. We've all reacted and maybe reflexively done something we didn't intentionally do. And that's how our children are. So that, again, they're in constant stress, because when a reflex isn't active, it's kind of stuck here in the back brain. And so the nervous system is constantly telling the back brain, which is the reptile, the lower part of the brain, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. So when that happens, then the child is actually going into stress all the time, into the Moro reflex. Next slide. So here's a picture of the Moro reflex. You've seen the baby, how they go back and go into stress when they're startled. But it also, what happens is if Maro's not integrated, then none of the other reflexes can integrate because the body is in stress. They can partially integrate, you can work with them, but you need to work with Maro and get the body relaxed. And that's one of the first things we do. We do go in order, and you don't have to assess the child because you would just go in order each day. So really nice about the program, you can work on all the reflexes at once. It's difficult when you can't because you say you have STNR way down the line in development and it's not integrated. Well, you get more integrated, but STNR and a few others are active, causing stress on the body again. And you can look at the degree of the challenge of the child, and it depends on how many reflexes are not integrated or the degree that are they severely not integrated or just mild. And so when we say active or retained, that means they still have that reflex. What happens is each reflex should kind of develop, as I mentioned, in harmony. So it's a set timeline, not just every child's different, we know that, but there's a time that each one should be going away almost. It's there in case you need it, but it's kind of like on standby. So it's not always saying, here I am, here I am, here I am, but it's just resting in case you do need to run. You do need fight or flight. You do need to fight. And so you have that reflex there to help with your response. And the Maro is the fight or flight reflex. And it, as I mentioned, other reflexes can't integrate, but it also, because the cells are flipping when the Maro's in stress, then it affects the immune system and their ability to relax and actually feel joy. Next slide, please. So the program's easy to use. You push 2 buttons and you hold it on the point. And we have an LED. So the package comes with 2 lasers, an LED, and you travel in between. And so this is just an example of showing how easy this is. I would put my 2 lasers on the 2 circles and I would travel with my LED up 8 times for Babkin, one side, then the other. So really simple. We have other programs, the cranial nerves, brain balance, and as I mentioned, QRI supports all other therapies. It is holistic, no side effects, and you can even, if you have a busy 2-year-old, you can do it while they're asleep. Next slide. So we're using the cold laser, and the cold laser actually is really exciting because we're working on health too. So it goes in, increases the production of ATP in the mitochondria, and so we know we're getting better health, more energy, the circulation's getting better, and then it helps with digestion, overall health, the immune system, which is really important right now. And we're especially important for us is nervous system regeneration. And we're using specific acupoints that I have found over the years that actually activate the primitive reflexes to where they're supposed to be. So if they need to integrate, then they can smooth out and relax. If there's a glitch in the system, then that's our goal, is we hope it gets to that glitch. Next slide. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in energy, frequency, and vibration. So we have on the laser, the CMT, and it's a vibration, and that's our sound in the laser. And what's really exciting about that is it's a frequency sweep. If you want to look up Rife frequencies, you can find there are thousands of them. And so deciding which one to do can be really daunting. And then, you know, which one's best for this child. So what the CMT does is actually lets the body choose, what do I need to work on right now? You can look up and find that parasites are destroyed by frequencies, viruses, bacteria, and so many other things in the body. So if you use this consistently, then you're going to start work. It does take over time. You just don't pop it on and things magically happen. It's something you work with over time. And so the vibration comes out in the sound and the frequency waves and the light. So it's really nice for healing and cleansing. When we work with children, we often start out slow because they may go through a cleanse. We're finding it actually improves DNA quality, which gives us all these things, gives us endless possibilities. Next slide, please.
And Bonnie, sorry to interrupt you. I'm just letting you know that's been 10 minutes. So
Okay.
You have a bit of a grace period now.
Oh, okay. Okay, so here's sound therapy, and it's been used for thousands of years, and you can see it does so much for all of us. Okay, the next slide. And this is just some research, and I can't quite see it all because of the people are over me. So anyway, this is the first research I'm looking at. They just used cold laser. Now, they did not use our program. So this is just using cold laser. They took 40 children with ASD, and they had 21 had laser, 19 did not. And they found that 13 improved so much. And I can't read what's after the 4, but the placebo group had no noticeable difference. And that's just using light therapy. If you can imagine, when I started introducing QRI, people really were very skeptical, which is understandable. And I just wanted to say that, you know, you can buy really cheap lasers. They're typically LEDs, and this is just a study in Melbourne that compared them, and they found that the laser is much more effective for certain things. We use LEDs in our program, but we typically use the cold laser. We find that the cold laser sedates, the LEDs stimulate, so it's kind of arranged that way. Next slide. And so if you want to learn more, the Symphony of Reflexes, and if you contact us, we'll give you a conference special and sell you one for $20. So the best place to learn about QRI is the QRI Cold Laser Support Group on Facebook, run by parents. And we have pages and pages of case studies and testimonials and all kinds of information there. And that my website is reflexintegration.net. And if you want more information, you can contact Jamie at 352-228-0360. And I think that leads us into questions.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I'll leave this up for a minute in case anyone wants to write it down. So actually, you answered one of the questions that was submitted before we started, which was, can QRI be done as a complementary treatment with other treatments?
Yes.
So you answered that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the other question that was sent in was, how many hours in a day is QRI if you do the treatment with the child?
It depends on the age of the child and the severity. So from just an example, a newborn would maybe be 5 minutes a day or less. And as the child gets older and how severe they are, an adult is about an hour and 15 minutes, but it's also a really flexible program. So we don't want to put stress on anyone. So it's not as rigid as, you know, you might need to, I know some programs have to be, and I'm not, but the parent can say, take 20 minutes in the morning, 20 at night. They can do it while the child's asleep. So there's a lot of options for QRI. You can stick the laser on specific points when they're sitting in their car seat or whatever. But so it just kind of depends on, I think most parents spend about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the age of their child and the severity. And you can do a couple of sessions a day if you want to. As for me, it's the more the better, but we work up to that part.
Great. Well, thank you, Bonnie. I see we've gotten a few more questions, but I think we'll get to them when we get to the last part. Okay. Thanks so much. Mm-hmm. All right. So now we're going to go to Laura Kaspar. And Laura, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up your bio, which I have here. Okay. So in 2012, Laura founded Gemiini Systems with her son, Nicholas. Gemiini is a web-based program which automates her method of language acquisition, known now as discrete video modeling. Laura is also the author of the international best-selling book, Embracing the Battle, and has lectured around the world to parents and professionals alike. Thanks so much for coming, Laura.
Thank you for having me, Spencer. My brain is exploding. I wish I could spend the next 10 minutes just asking these two questions. I think I'm going to use the laser in your protocol on myself. I think the thing about all of these methods is they're not just for children with autism. And we need to stop thinking of them as like aliens. We're all people. We all have the same metabolic makeup. We all learn the same way, just in different intensity and durations, as the neurodevelopmentalists like to say. And I think any of these protocols could be used for any of us for optimal health. And that's what we're working on, is optimal health. Now, if our health is not impairing our everyday life to a high extent, we just don't take the time to do these. And if it is impairing someone's life, we have to take the time. That's really just the difference. So Gemiini was founded because I have twins with autism and they were not responding to in vivo therapy. And really what all acquisition or all learning for everyone breaks down to two parts: the acquisition of information, or the input, and the functional use of the information. Now, video modeling has been shown in, I think it's one of the most researched methods of learning on the planet. And it's been shown to be the most effective, the fastest, the most cost-effective, the most passive and painless way for input of information. And that's specifically because of the specific repetition. No matter how much we repeat something in vivo, we're going to say it, do it differently every time. The light's going to change. And every time that happens, the child or the person in front of us brain is going to have to learn something new every single time. With video, it's always the same. So you get to wear down those pathways into a superhighway, like Temple Grandin says. And so it just becomes rote. It becomes easy. You have the information, but it doesn't help if you can't use it. So in the past, we've seen a lot of children with autism can name all of these flashcards, can do all this. They get up from the table and they walk away and they don't use their information. So if you don't use it, it's not going to be effective. Now, anybody can make videos. I made them myself for my own children. The problem is how cost effective is it and how effective are your videos? We've been doing it for 22 years, 23 years. And so we sort of know the secret sauce on how to teach specific issues or specific curriculum, where so our videos are going to work faster. Also, when I was making the videos, because there was no Gemiini, I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm holding flashcards up, like falling asleep on half the time. And I think if I look back, I was paying myself about $1 an hour not to have Gemiini. Gemiini is really inexpensive to save you all that time and aggravation and money. I use Gemiini for myself. I had to speak in Mexico in Spanish for 20 minutes to Congress. And I made the speech on Gemiini, and I just played it wherever I went on my Gemiini program. So it's not just for people with exceptionalities. Anybody can learn this way. My child learned, my 7th child, who is neurotypical, little bit of dyslexia, he learned to read with the program. So a video just works for everybody. They teach nurses, look at all of like Khan Academy, and everybody's using video. So the difference with Gemiini is it's specifically filmed to filter out all the extraneous information and just teach one tiny little bit of information sort of in a silo at a time, in a specific order that builds on itself. So you have fast assimilation of information. The second point is, once you have this information, now what do you do with it? And if you do not have a well-functioning organism, it's very hard to be able to functionally use the information. This is where this is where Dr. Yasko, and this is where Bonnie's program are very important. And then also, if you're working with any therapists, with yourself as caregivers, I hate to see these people wasting their time flipping flashcards when a computer can do that much more effectively. And back in the day, the therapists used to do digit span work. And that's kind of the missing link between the two. If you you have the encyclopedia in your brain, and you have a very well functioning organism, but you don't have the memory capacity to link the two, then both of them are not going to be very much use for you. You have to have the memory to retrieve them. And the way we can do that, we know that children with exceptionalities, even ADD, dyslexia, Down syndrome, autism, even low IQ, the sort of common issue there is working memory problems. That can be worked on. And it can be used. Gemiini has 2 games, one for working memory and one for associative memory. And when we see that a child is using the Gemiini for language, using the memory programs, and then working on their organism, like with Dr. Yasko Protocol and Dr. Brandis's protocol, you almost can't go wrong. I would say we have over a 99% success rate. And when I see people who the kids just aren't responding, it's typically because there is some outside condition that we can affect. Normally it's seizures disorders, severe seizure disorders. And I've seen in the last 22 years, a handful, less than 10, where it doesn't work. The key to all of this, to all of our programs, is consistency. You can't, if you buy the laser and you don't use it, it's not going to work. If you pay for Gemiini and you don't use it, it's not going to work. If you buy the supplements and you don't give them, it's not going to work. So everybody has to be consistent. And now this is not a problem with mothers with children with autism. This is a problem ourselves. Why are there a million diet programs? Because we're not consistent as human beings. It's just, part of the human condition. So this is where the secret to being consistent is just setting up a habit. You look at the program that you want to do. You have the neurodevelopmentalist issues, you have the brushing, you have all of the things, the physical things that even parents can help with, can do. You have the video modeling going on, which is super easy. It integrates to your life. You just use the video modeling when the child's eating. You don't have to take 1 minute away from your life, driving in the car or when they're eating, and that's it. Some people use it in the bathtub. They have these little holders with a waterproof case when they're on the bathtub, but that's the beauty of Gemiini, is it doesn't take any other time from your child. And then you're doing the supplements and you're doing the laser, and it's just a routine. At 10 o'clock, I do this. At 11 o'clock, I do, it's a routine. And what I love, my favorite quote ever is, willpower is a spark to habit. Once something is a habit, it's not hard anymore. It's just what you do, like waking up, brushing your teeth. So you know that you just set aside, Mom, okay, 30 days I'm going to set aside to make this a habit. I'm going to be really, really faithful, religiously faithful to this habit. Month 2, it's what you just do. It's easy to do. And I just want to say that even if something came along and there was this huge breakthrough and miraculously removed everyone's barrier to learning information, and different people have different kinds of barriers, neurological, physical barriers to learning information, removed it all just magically, miraculously, that person would still be years behind in the assimilation of information. So they would still need to move forward and keep up that health. So Gemiini would still be needed to get the child caught up to their peers. We see kids who are very far behind in their language, in their physical abilities, in their occupational therapy. They start using Gemiini, they go on the GFCF diet, they start doing some, and they become much better. They become almost like they just wake up. And then sometimes the parents just stop, and then you see regression. Or just as bad is the parents just stop, okay, well, he's fine now, thinking that somehow this child's is 3 years behind in language and they're just going to magically catch up. And what happens when they get into middle school, those deficits are not seen. And that's when they start having real learning problems. And this is when they fail in school. And they can converse with you, everything's great, but they are so far behind in their language development that was masked because in casual conversation, Americans use very few words. In academics, you have to use a lot more. You have to have those abilities to read them and to understand them, and then also to use them. So even if all this stuff works great, you have to keep up with the memory part and with the language part until you're sure that they're doing well in school. My sort of litmus test is with my own children. I had my own children who were autistic 2 years ahead in school before I kind of relaxed. Because after I did relax, then we had to work on social skills. We had to work on more other kinds of functional skills that were not language. And those are really hard to work on if you don't have the language ability. So get that language up as high as you can. It will help with everything else.
Laura, thanks so much for your talk. If someone wants to learn more about Gemiini, how can they learn more?
They could go to Gemiini.org, and it's spelled incorrectly. It has 2 I's in the middle, so it's GEMIINI.org. My book is free there as well. It explains the whole history of how I started Gemiini and how my children improved. And there are half the book are just testimonials from people using the program that are quite astounding. And then we also have our Facebook page, and every week, several times a week, we have our product specialists on there answering questions, doing live posting, because the program's very, very big. A lot of people, when they go on there, we just have sort of like a quick start, kind of like those treadmills. You can do quick start, or you can put in something very specific. Our quick start program is really very basic for early learners. We have all the way up to advanced college vocabulary or college prep vocabulary. We have every skill you can imagine. I think we're up to 220,000 videos now on the site. Those 220 are not in quick start, 220,000. So to really get into the program and see everything we have to offer, it's best to schedule a call with our specialists, go over the specific needs of your child. We have a lot of adults who use the program, nonverbal adults who are in their 30s and 40s who never said a word, use Gemiini, and within 6 months, they're fulfilling all their wants and needs verbally. They went from having a room full of attendants to having one attendant for a room full of people. So it's really ageless. But to get to that maybe unusual user, you really need to schedule a call with our product specialist so they can help you find the best way.
And we have a question from Cynthia who says, Laura, how many videos or minutes per day of watching do you recommend?
So it's sort of like what Bonnie was talking about. It's not all or nothing. Ideally, you're going to see whatever video session they're watching 6 times a day. So that would be twice through in the morning, twice through for breakfast, twice through for lunch, twice through at dinner. They're usually about 5 minutes long. So 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. But the more you do, the faster they'll learn, and then they'll be able to go on to the next session. The less you do, it'll take longer to learn that session. And every child's different. Some people, like when I was doing research in preschool, there were 30 kids in a classroom. I would have one group of kids who would watch it once. And this is all diagnosis, even Down syndrome, it didn't matter. Would watch it once, you test them, and they got all 100% right. How is that possible? Well, because they kind of knew them. They just hadn't put it together. So with those kids, they can go through several videos a week. There are some children who literally had to watch one video 300 times before they could get it. And this is where we start with 42 times a week of watching a video, and then we test. How well did they do? If they get 100%, then maybe they only have to watch it 30 times and just kind of balance it that way. But 30 minutes a day is really perfectly fine.
The next question, we get this similar question a lot at Doman International. The mom says, I really like the idea of Gemiini, but do you plan to offer different languages? I would like to do it in German because it's my language.
So we have it in Spanish, a little Chinese, some French. We have a lot of Arabic that I don't know if it's quite up on the site yet. We are working with AWS, Amazon Web Solutions, to create a Gemiini that can be used in every language in the world. It's already been designed. It's very exciting. It takes more effort on the parents, from the parents than this one, the real one, the Gemiini that we have now, but not that much more. And it's going to be more for children sort of on the lower end of the spectrum who are just learning language. But then there will be a pathway to teach parents how to take it from there. And then it's really up to you. So yes, there are big plans, every language in the world. It's very exciting.
That's great. All right, one last question. One parent is asking, how does it help improve social skills? How does Gemiini help improve social skills?
So Gemiini, the social skills programs show you from the outside what it looks like during those situations. So we have a whole group of social skills, of social interaction scenarios that are common in school, and they have titles. Now, what you have to think about with autism, my son, my eldest son, who was pretty much recovered from Gemiini, I asked him one time, because he works, he's still autistic. He's just very high functioning, and most people wouldn't know that he was autistic. They just know he's just really smart, is what they always say. But he told me, when he was in his 20s, he said, "Mom, it's like the whole world has mental telepathy except for me." That's what he feels like. And he's highly high functioning. And so there's a component of interaction that we neurotypical people take for granted that we don't even realize is going on. And that's being able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes and feel and think what they do as they're feeling and thinking it. And that's how we can finish people's sentences, because we're already there with them. People, even if they are, quote, recovered and functioning at a very higher level, it's rare that people who are diagnosed with autism gain that skill. Now, maybe with the laser and with really cleaning up their organism, I'm going to do the laser for my whole family, and I want to go with you, Dr. Yasko, too. I've got some issues with other kids. I'm going to go with both of you guys. Maybe that will help that. Video modeling is not necessarily going to change that component. What we can do is we can play out these social scenarios, and as a third-party observer, the child is watching the interaction and clicks, "Oh, I get it. They said this because they said that." And teach them that way. Teach them what was going to come next. And this imagine all the social skills or social scenarios in the world. Imagine the huge library of components you'd have to have. And this is why Gemiini is there's a lot easier way to make a buck, I'll tell you right now, than making 250,000 videos. It's very, very intensive. We have huge teams of people working on these videos all the time. So that's really how it works on social skills. It's one specific scenario at a time. And if your child has an issue with a social scenario that we don't have, let us know. That's how they all get filmed, by people saying, "Hey, my kid had a problem." As one teacher said, she had a child that just kept on taking off his shirt, took off his shirt. So we made a video in class of a child about to take off his shirt, and the teacher, we filmed some kind of a response. A prompt was like, "Shirt down, shirt down." And then we showed it to the child in vivo in a classroom. She got that video. And every time the teacher said "shirt down," he stopped doing it. And then it just extinguished because he didn't know the prompt to stop. So it's taking it down to the most basic level to every specific scenario. And I think there is some environmental learning that does happen. Once you've seen enough of these different scenarios play out with actors, then you can start to anticipate, oh, this happened this time. So in this other scenario, it's pretty similar. This may happen. This may not go so well. I better not do that this time.
Great. Well, Laura, thank you so much. I do see a couple of more questions for you. So we'll get to them when we get to the roundtable portion at the end. Okay, so I'm going to be the last speaker today. And by the way, if you're joining a bit late, my name is Spencer Doman. I'm the director of Doman International. And it's a pleasure to have these great speakers here and talk about holistic answers for kids with autism and other special needs. Talking about the Doman Method and Doman International in 10 minutes, like I'm sure it was for my fellow speakers, is pretty tough because I have to kind of distill 60 years into 10 minutes. But if I had to kind of give a brief explanation about what we do at Doman International, it would first be to just say that the Doman Method is a brain-centered approach, right? The brain is the body's command center. And so for children with autism or with other special needs, their difficulties that they have in life are largely because of problems in brain and nervous system function, right? So our brains allow us to speak and to move and to hear and to feel. And so if our brains are not working or functioning correctly, we're going to have symptoms as a result of it, right? And those symptoms could be speech problems, they could be mobility problems, they could be abnormal behavior, it could be auditory or tactile hypersensitivity, could be cognitive difficulties. But it's important to understand that these are all symptoms, but the actual root cause are problems in brain development. And the problem with I think so much of the professional world and how, let's say, the traditional establishment tries to help kids with special needs is they try to treat the symptoms, right? So they'll look at this child and they'll say, this child has a speech problem, so we're going to try some speech therapy. This child has behavioral problems, so we're going to do some behavioral intervention. And you know, this child has some auditory issues, we'll try some auditory therapy and so on. But the problem is if you don't treat the root cause, the symptoms won't go away, right? It would be similar if, you know, I went to a doctor and I said, doctor, you know, something's wrong, you know, I'm having terrible chest pains, right? And I'm feeling incredibly nauseous and I can't feel my left arm, right? A good doctor would look at those symptoms and determine that the root cause of the problem is a heart attack and would treat the heart. Someone who is using a symptom-focused approach would say, oh, well, you know, I'm going to give you some anti-nausea medication for your nausea, and here's a muscle relaxant for your chest, and I'm going to massage your left arm until you feel it again, right? That's a symptom-focused approach, and we know how that would result for a person having a heart attack, right? But unfortunately for kids with special needs, this is the standard approach. Instead of looking at what are treatments and activities that are beneficial for brain development, because when the brain improves in function, the symptoms can start to go away, whether those symptoms are, again, speech problem, behavioral problems, sensory issues, whatever they may be. So the Doman Method isn't one activity or treatment. It's actually a holistic system of different treatments. And there are really 4 pillars of our program. The first is cognitive development, right? So looking at each child and saying, what can we do to improve this child's understanding? What can we do to help this child succeed academically? What does this child need for their sensory and speech development? So first, we look at that first pillar, cognitive development. The second pillar is physical development. What do we need to do so that this child has good fine and gross motor skills to help this child walk, run, and play and use their hands like all the other kids? The third pillar is nutrition and physiology. We know that to get great results in brain development, we've got to address nutrition. Outside of the brain, the largest number of brain cells, neurons, are located in our gut. I think there are 500 million neurons in our digestive tract alone. And so addressing nutrition through supplementation, through environment, through good sleep, we know is really, really important to getting the best results for kids. And lastly, we have a respiratory program. That's the 4th pillar. And we have a program called Doman Method Oxygenation, which is a program designed to increase oxygen delivery to the brain. Oxygen is the food of the brain. And we have found that when we can get more oxygen to a child's brain, overall brain function and development improves. So by addressing these 4 pillars, we find we get maximum results. Right? And anything that we recommend to parents is results driven. That's really what we really care about. Is this thing going to help kids learn to talk, learn to walk and play like other kids, succeed in school, whatever the goals are for that child? Because in the end, that's really what all that matters, right? Is results for kids. And I have to say that all the speakers who are joining me today, the reason why we invited them was because other parents had told us about them. And I have to say that when other professionals tell me about treatments out there that might work, I kind of pay attention. But when parents tell me something works, I know a parent would never recommend something unless they saw it work with their own eyes. And so it's that quest for us at Doman International to keep finding things that provide results that really drives us. And, I really can't tell the story of Doman International without talking a little bit about my grandfather, Glenn Doman, who created the Doman Method. In the 1950s, he was a physical therapist. And I have to say, fortunately for the world, he was an unconventional thinker. I think he was very courageous, and he refused to do things that didn't work. He was that kind of impatient person. And so when he found that a lot of the things he had been taught in school weren't working for kids with special needs, he started to develop his own treatments. And that's what laid the groundwork and the basis and launched the Doman Method. And he used to say that the only thing that should be constant about the Doman Method is change, right? So he really pushed the people that followed in his footsteps to keep looking for new answers and new ways to help kids. And so we keep trying to innovate at Doman International and find new ways to help kids. We're very selfish in that way. If we find something that works, we'll latch onto it, because in the end, nothing else matters except for helping kids. And so Laura kind of referenced this earlier. We try to find the things that work best for kids, and then we teach parents the frequency, intensity, and duration to do those activities, right? So we'll say the frequency is how many times you should do that in a day. The intensity is the strength of that activity, and the duration is how long you do it for. So we figure out the best frequency, intensity, and duration for each activity, and then teach it to parents so they can do it at home. So the Doman Method is a home-based treatment. And I will say that for basically everything that we've been discussing today, it's not just a holistic, these aren't just holistic treatments, these are home-based treatments that families can do at home. So, there are really three things that drive us at Doman International and our quest to help kids. And the first thing is that we know that kids with special needs have great potential, and they also have an innate intelligence, no matter what anyone tells you. Kids with special needs are far brighter than the world gives them credit for. They have a lot greater potential. And we know this because for many, many years, we've seen young kids with autism and other special needs learn to read before they go to school, learn math. Laura mentioned earlier her quest to kind of send her kids to school. It advanced, right, for their age. And that is really the goal of the Doman Method. We want to send kids to school, ahead of their peers. I had the pleasure of meeting a family yesterday. Right now, I'm actually in Serbia. I'm in the Balkans, and I met with a Croatian family and their child with Down syndrome, who grew up on our program, was the first child in Croatia with Down syndrome to enter school with their neurotypical peers, not in a special education classroom, but in a classroom with their neurotypical peers without any support. The first child in the country known to do that. And so we know that kids are capable far more than what the world thinks about them. The second thing that we do is we work hand in hand with families to find solutions for their kids. And we really don't just try to teach families, we support them along the way because we know that there are going to be challenges and obstacles that they meet. And so our job is to support families as they go through that journey. And the last thing is we never, ever give up on kids. We know, as I said, we know that kids with special needs have a great potential. And any child that has graduated from our program. So when we graduate a child, it means the Doman International team feels that child is ready to go off to school with their peers and succeed. For each one of those children, there was at least one expert who told their parents that child would, never live an independent life, would never succeed in school, would never live a full life. Sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes they even tell the parents the child will never speak or ever walk. And we see children kind of destroy those prognosis, those predictions every day. And so that's kind of taught us, don't ever give up on a kid. And, and that drives us each and every day to not just help kids, but find new solutions. So if people want to learn more about Doman International, you can go to domaninternational.org. You can learn more about the online Doman Method course, which is our 4-week online course to teach parents and empower parents into how to use the Doman Method with their child at home and begin our home-based treatments. And, last but not least, I'm going to do a shameless plug of my book. So earlier this year, I wrote the book with my dad, Douglas, called Answering Autism, the Doman Method Plan for Autism, ADD, and Neurodevelopmental Delays. I know autism is in the title, but I have to say that this book would be helpful for just about any parent of a child with special needs, any special need or developmental delay. No matter what issues your child might be facing, there's something in this book for you. And we're very, very proud of the information in the book. And it's a very practical book. It's not just all theory and history. It gives you concrete information, things you can start today with your child. And so I hope that the book and our website will be helpful for parents out there who want to learn more. Great. Okay. Well, we now have some time to get to questions. So please, if you have a question, go ahead and type them into your comments box. Let us know specifically, who your question is for, or if you have a question for the whole group, you can, go ahead and let us know that, and we'll all give it our best answer. So first, I just wanted to read a comment. So we have a comment here from Marie Bassick. She said, I just want to thank each of you from the bottom of our heart. You each have helped our daughter so much. Thank you all for everything you do. So Marie, thank you very much. I think you introduced me to each of the people here, and along with other parents who spoke to me about Dr. Yasko and Bonnie and Laura. So I really appreciate you for recommending such great people, and to all the other parents who have put us all in touch. Okay, let's get to the next question. So I have a question here from Carlos. And Carlos says, I'd like to know Dr. Amy's opinion. If supplements should always have natural products added, or it's just an extra advantage?
I'm not exactly sure what Carlos is asking. I'm very specific about where I get my own supplements from, the ingredients, having those checked for any non-ideal ingredients that could be in there. And so it gets back to supplement source and quality, storage and shipping. Even if it's the same exact brand, if it's been in a hot warehouse and not shipped not stored properly and not shipped properly, that may in fact impact the efficacy of that supplement. But again, going back to what I said earlier, the approach I take is very data driven, harking to what you said, it's not symptom driven. And so if you're using supplements and you're running tests and your tests are improving, then it would seem that the supplements you're using are doing what you would like. If you're using supplements and you're doing repeat testing and your tests are not improving, then either you may want to reconsider which supplements you're using, or the type or the brand or the frequency, which kind of gets to something Laura was saying about and also Bonnie, about habits and parents. If you look at the nutritional and metabolic pathways in someone's body, and I have certain graphics of that on some of my sites, it's more complex than if you looked at the entire highway system of the entire country. It's so interconnected. We have so many pathways in the body. And so one thing to think about with supplementation, or at least my own personal approach that I found successful, is using small amounts of multiple different supplements that help to balance a variety of these pathways in the body. Using mega doses of single supplements is not as ideal. And if you go back to the concept of a highway system, if you think about imbalances in your metabolic pathways as crashes on various highways that cause those highways to stop the flow of traffic, when there's an accident on a highway, you don't have a bulldozer clear the highway. What you do is you look and say, okay, let's subvert people onto various side roads. Let's look at how else we can go to get around the accident rather than using a bulldozer. And so, in my own personal opinion and experience, high doses of single supplements are the bulldozer approach. Using small amounts of multiple supplements is a more overall balanced approach. It's not easy. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, which was something Bonnie alluded to when she was talking about her approach with the cold laser, or what Laura was talking about being consistent and making certain things a habit. It's a habit to want to be healthy, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your children, whether it's for your parents. And so just looking at the complex pathways, looking at nutrients and supplements that are handled and packaged well without all kinds of other ingredients that you don't want in there. Those are all keys to getting this complex highway system of our metabolics in balance. So I don't know if that's what Carlos was alluding to or not, but I hope that helps in general to understand how you may want to think about using supplementation.
Thanks so much, Dr. Yasko. Okay, the next question is for you, Bonnie. A mom is asking, could QRI be used with an eight-month-old baby?
Yes, QRI can be used with an 8-month-old baby, but you would start out slow. So maybe you'd start out at 5 to 10 minutes a day and then gradually build up as they got older. So you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time. You could do that as a couple of sessions a day and you would be perfectly fine. And you could probably build them at 8 months old. You could probably build them up to about 20 minutes. And then when they got a year and a half or two, then you would build them up to more time.
Great. And I think that, by the way, if any of the speakers want to disagree with me, please let me know. But I don't believe that there are age restrictions for any of the protocols or programs that we're talking about today. I think Laura actually said herself that, even she's had 30-year-olds and on her program. And, even with the Doman method, we, have, parents attend our courses who are, mom is pregnant with a child that she knows is going to have Down syndrome or a genetic condition, all the way up to, we have seniors who have had strokes and had traumatic brain injury. So does anyone have any age restrictions in terms of guidance of patients? No.
No, I worked with my daughter's triplets in the hospital when they were born. And so, but it was just like on, 5 seconds here, 5 seconds here, one was stuck in marrow and another one had a head who'd been sitting on the hip. And we were able to, work with that over time. So.
Yeah. And Laura said earlier, I think, basically everything we're talking about here are lifestyles, right? It's more than just a treatment. It can be seen as a lifestyle.
On the opposite end of what Bonnie was saying, I think the oldest individual on my program right now, where we are still seeing positive changes, he's 92. And so whether it's one extreme, as Bonnie was suggesting, or the other, I think, positive health changes can make a difference at any point in life.
We at Gemiini, we've seen people who are suffering from Alzheimer's sitting in their living rooms with their grandchildren watching Gemiini, and the people with Alzheimer's retain everything and their memory comes back for specific items that they'd forgotten. This is a common thing. We're going to actually do some research with Alzheimer's soon. And we have stroke victims who are in their 60s who had lost all use of speech 4 years prior to the event. Post-event. So they were pretty much given up on by the speech therapists and by the medical institutions. They're never going to talk again, use Gemiini. And there's one of the wives sent me a video of him smiling and waving to me and talking. So it really, it's all ages.
Wonderful.
And following up with that, Laura, one mom has asked, does Gemiini work with eye gaze devices specifically for a cerebral palsy child?
This is something that I've been wanting to look into for years. A few years ago, we met with Intel and we were looking at potentially creating an eye gaze device. If that mother would reach out to us through the website and we can start a dialogue with her, there may be something that we could fast track that sort of on our to-do list. I also want to just mention quickly about sort of what you were saying, Spencer, about neurological development. And this one aspect of autism I discovered in a very obscure study that was sort of put in some lockbox somewhere and I just started thinking, it's like when I look at my autistic kids that they're daydreaming, just heavy daydream all the time with that look on their face. And when I did the research, they found that people with autism have a hyper-connected default network. And the default network is the network in your brain you use when you're dreaming or daydreaming, where the active network is what we use when we're learning, engaging, awake. And sometimes we can float into the default network when we're standing there doing the dishes. I used to call it calculus brain when I was in school. Calculus teacher would start to talk and I would just float into my default and I was off surfing or doing something. I was not there. And at the end of the class, did I learn anything? No, I had to go back and read the book and teach myself because I was in my default network the whole time. If you're in your default, it's very hard to have that first stage of learning, that input stage. You're just gone, you're not there. And that's where we are, our kids with autism. And that's why you have to have so much repetition in vivo therapy, because you're hoping to catch them when they're in that active stage just once out of the 150 repetitions you did. With Gemiini, we have these little anomalies built into the way it's filmed, where you're constantly waking somebody up. And it's that same feeling you get when you're watching a movie and a really bad actor comes on and kind of breaks the spell. And you realize, oh, this is just a movie. You're so into it, you were there, and then it's broke. We are breaking that spell constantly, getting people to wake up. So they're learning in their active network. And then they can, when you learn something in your active network, you can then go into the second phase of learning and use it functionally. And that's why, so I have parents who'll say, well, my kid watches videos all day long. They watch Disney, they're multi-million-dollar productions compared to Gemiini, and they don't learn anything from that. Well, just because they're not filmed in a specific way. It's kind of like with the vitamins. You can go and give a bunch of I'm not going to say brand name, but you all know what I'm thinking of, in the grocery store, given to your kid, and you're not going to see any results because it's pretty much just rocks and dirt. And so that's the difference in the neurological ways we use with Gemini. Now, as far as the eye gazing goes, that is more for the output. So a child with, this is where I'm the roundabout way, I'm going to answer this woman's question. As far as input goes, Gemini could be used to teach this child everything. And even if they don't have full control of their body movements, they're going to see that specific repetition over and over again, and they're going to learn. It takes time to learn information, to have the input. And while we are working on ways to help this child with their output by occupational therapy, by physical therapy, by the laser, by nutrition, by eye gazing, that can come like secondly. But first you need to focus on getting them to learn it, having that input there. And I've seen remarkable success with kids with CP. I had a testimonial somewhere. I just fell over when I read these, that somehow by just engaging that active network, a lot of the symptoms of the CP improved.
Great, thanks, Laura. Melania asked, can you repeat the name of the Doman Method book? So it's called Answering Autism. So you can find that on Amazon. If you just go into Amazon and you type in Answering Autism or Spencer Doman, you'll find it. Okay. The next question is for Dr. Yasko. Well, actually, we've gotten a couple of questions about, so for example, one mom said, I have a son, 9 years old, with autism and severe apraxia of speech. Is it possible that a child could start to talk at that age? So in many ways, this is a question that honestly the whole roundtable could take, but this parent specifically wanted you, Dr. Yasko, to address this.
We have definitely had quite a bit of success with children with apraxia, regardless of age. One of the newer nutrients that we've added, or sort of a subset of nutritional supplements in the past year, is really making a huge difference in terms of language. And I would expect that if it were severe apraxia and the protocol I use nutritionally were combined with some of what Laura and Bonnie have spoken about today, one would think that that would even accelerate the progress. Getting back to what I said initially, I do feel from a biochemical standpoint that we want to help to balance the methylation cycle, because that's such a key nutritional pillar to deal with imbalances in the gut and the microbes in the gut and the toxins, all of which can get in the way. And then in addition to that, we have some very specific supplements and programs and nutrients that seem to be really making a huge difference for language, as well as repetitive and compulsive behaviors. And I feel that the biochemical protocol that I use works very well with other kinds of programs, such as what Bonnie has spoken about, what Laura's spoken about, what the approach you take, as well as homeopathy in general, actually. And so I'm a strong believer in using multiple approaches simultaneously. But I do feel that the biochemistry is really critical, because if you don't get at what the root cause is, and if you don't balance some of these interconnected pathways, like these highway systems I'm talking about, then it makes it more difficult for some of the other approaches you might want to take to flow. And again, if you think about it as a highway, if there's crashes that are blocking highways in multiple pathways in your body, until we bypass those or clear those, it makes it more difficult to get from point A to point B, regardless of what other programs you want to layer in.
Great, thanks. Okay, the next question that we have is for you, Laura. One parent is asking, is Gemiini an automated version of ABA? If not, could you kindly help me understand the difference?
So my kids had, when they were diagnosed when they were 3, we had a neurodevelopmentalist that was sort of a Doman Method person. We had an ABA specialist. We had an RDI specialist. We had every initial there is using with my children before we started the video modeling. ABA, in its underlying philosophy, takes information in tiny little pieces and teaches the child one piece at a time. So if it's going to teach colors, it's not going to put 15 colors on a board and say, this is blue, yellow, green, like you would do in a preschool classroom. They're going to take red and just show this is red. All right. That's what ABA does. It does it with a person there, and the person is taking copious notes. And sometimes the person can be the best therapist in the world, the most kind, the Mary Poppins of therapists. Sometimes she should be in a different profession. Let's just put it that way. She's just way too firm. And those ones usually give ABA a bad name. They're just not good with kids. And they're people. These are people. So it's really hard to say ABA is this, ABA is that, because it's really the therapist personality that drives ABA. Gemiini is just a screen that does that same thing, takes away the components. We're not teaching 15 colors, we're just teaching red, but it's on a screen. The child is sitting there eating their food. So that means that there's no risk of having a person who shouldn't be in that profession in your house. Pretty much that's the difference. There, you've got the same video all the time. It's very passive. You're not gonna have fighting. I had the best therapists in the world for my kids. I have to tell you, I did have a bunch of Mary Poppins. They were amazing. Still, they would come out, their glasses broken, scraped, bleeding, because my kids just had enough. They were just not having the pressure to have to repeat everything all the time. It was just too much and they couldn't take it anymore. When we switched to the videos, they just ate. And then those same therapists came, but they were playing. They were doing active. They were making games out of what they had learned through the video. They were getting the red block. Where's the red block? And making fun. It was no more sitting there with flashcards, forcing the children to repeat. So that's the difference, is you're doing this, you're getting the same, you're getting much more optimal input, and that therapist time could be used for fun and to work on that second part of learning, which is using the information. And I'm sorry, I'm very blunt. I just kind of lay it as is because I'm a mom and I've seen it all. One ABA professional called Gemiini the UN of therapy, because we really go with every single kinds of therapy. And I love ABA when it's done well by the right kind of person in conjunction with video modeling. It's very effective as long as it's play-based.
Yeah, to kind of second your point, I've found that in just about any area of medicine or therapy, that you can find amazing people in that field and the absolute worst. You know, you can find amazing cardiologists and terrible cardiologists. You can find great therapists and horrible therapists. You know, it's more about the individual. So I got one question. How can I start the Doman Method at home? Do I need a coach? So I'm not sure if this question was submitted before I finished my talk, but basically for parents, I would recommend going to our website and looking into the online Doman Method course. The whole point of the course is to coach parents in starting the program up. And it's a combination of video conferences that you can watch and live Zoom conferences like this, where me and the rest of the Doman International team teach you how to start the program at home, that or reading the books. All right. So Laura, just to follow up, one parent is asking, it's another question about foreign languages. We tried Gemini in Spanish, but the library is smaller compared to English. Are you planning to make it bigger?
We do have plans for that. It's kind of on the back burner until, because we're working more on this one that you can use for in any language. What my hope is that people start, that if you get through all the Spanish curriculum, you get to the point where you understand sort of the Gemiini method, and then we have a component in the program that's upload your own video. So let's say you've gone through all the Spanish curriculum and you're going to go to grandma's house in Acapulco on the beach, and you want to prepare this child for what they're going to see there, who they're going to meet, family members, that sort of thing. Well, you can take a video of photographs of the family members and hold it up and have someone video you it, or just take a video that said, say, this is abuelo, abuela, this is Tio Martin, Tia Angelica, whatever. And just so they'll see all those faces and all those names. You can video yourself in little scenarios, making the food that grandma's going to make or whatever. You upload it to Upload Your Own on Gemini, and you can rearrange it in the order you want. And then you can go and you can take the Gemini videos and add in there. If we have specific foods, colors, things that would help, you can add those in there. So it takes a little bit more time. It takes, I did this for my own son, was in the Chinese immersion school, and I made all his Chinese video flashcards on Gemini and uploaded them myself. It took me about 30 minutes a week, but all week long on the way back and forth to school, he was watching his videos that I uploaded. And so instead of having him to get home and do all this homework, he had it all done because he was watching it in the car. And so for an extra 30 minutes a week, you can use the Gemini program. I've had parents say that they would pay double for Gemini just for the Upload Your Own facility ability, because then you can download it onto a tablet, take it off screen. You have those videos stored forever. You can manipulate them any way you want. So you can still keep using the program in any language with about 30 minutes a week of your time of input.
Great. Thanks,
Oh,
Laura.
and I just want to repeat to make it clear that when my kids were in ABA and the glasses and everything, that was before we switched to using Gemini or video modeling. Once we switched to using video modeling, all that behavior went away, and every time the therapist came to the door, they would jump for joy because they were going to be there to play with them. So I just want to make that clear. I wasn't forcing them to do that the whole time. I'm going to get a lot of hate letters if I don't say that.
Okay, so I have one more question for Bonnie, and then we'll kind of end off with one last question that I'll ask the speakers. So Bonnie, the question for you is, what's the difference between quantum laser and electroacupuncture? Because I did it to my son and he had seizures afterwards. I think she means this person means the electroacupuncture.
It's like comparing apples to oranges. So what we're using is a class 1, very mild cold laser and no electro in it. So the child doesn't feel it. It's so relaxing. And we're using specific patterns and our points. So these are not points that you would find. I'm sure some of them are from Chinese medicine, some from shiatsu, all different places. But they're not points that, you would go in and have done somewhere else. It's specific to reflex integration. And so we start with relaxing the body, first of all, before we start unconscious resistance points to get rid of any resistance that the child may have to change. And then we start going through the reflexes in a specific order every time. And so by doing this, then each one kind of works with the next one. So it's a totally different program. We have the sound, we're using 2 lasers and LEDs. And we also have a lot of complementary programs we have a think program for their mind. We have a movement program. We have a new one, central auditory processing, and different programs like that they can use LEDs and their laser with after their reflex integration sessions. So.
Okay. All right. So, I'd like to finish off with a question for each of you. I was just wondering if there's anything on the horizon that you're really excited about. This could be something that you're incorporating into your practice, something you're working on. It could even just be something you're learning about, but anything, you know, for the next year or two that you're excited about. So Dr. Yasko, let's start with you.
I alluded to it when I answered the last question. In the past, I would say 6 to 8 months, what we've done is introduce certain specific nutrients designed to help with language and compulsive and repetitive behaviors. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. Along those lines, some of the other areas with similar nutrients that are on the horizon are for memory issues, specifically looking at elderly individuals with Alzheimer's, as well as not so much complex seizures, but issues within the seizure realm. So some of those newer nutrients that we've introduced in the past year, and are looking at introducing over the coming months, I'm very excited about. The other thing is, for years when I had a practice, when I was still seeing individuals in my consult, there were a wide range of health issues. I would see everything from people concerned about weight loss to psoriasis to longevity to cancer. And what we've done is refine some of those protocols, and we're looking at having those available on the client portal just as free programs for people to reference, to be able to narrow down and say, okay, I'm healthy, but I'm looking at longevity, or I'd like to look at what is a narrowed down, fine-tuned weight loss protocol that can go along with some of the other healthy dietary changes I'm making. And so the goal is to have these available just for overall health and wellness, because one thing that I look at a lot is if you have a child who has special needs, some of those imbalances perhaps in your nutrigenomic pathway or infectious agents, those were all inherited. They may be present in others in the family. And so let's branch out and not just work and look at trying to help to keep the child in question healthy, but let's look at keeping the parents healthy, keeping the other siblings healthy, looking at the grandparents. I know as a mom, my focus was make sure that the kids are well cared for, make sure the kids are healthy. But then at a certain point, you need to step back and say, what about the caregiver? What about the stress on the mom and the dad and the grandparents and the other siblings? And so having more complete protocols available just for others in the family to keep everyone healthy and balanced and a little more stress-free. And so kind of opposites in terms of some of the newer nutrients for specific, more significant neurological situations, as well as more generalized protocols just for caring about everyone in a household.
Great. Thanks so much. Bonnie, I'll ask you the same question. Anything you're excited or looking forward to?
Yes, I'm really excited. We have developed a frequency bed. And so what we've done is take a tanning bed and put LEDs in the top. We've put PEMF and numerous Tesla Rife frequencies through it. And it's also can be hooked up to a computer, so we can't legally say that we address conditions, but there are Rife frequency sweeps for various conditions and so with this, we're hoping we have 2 of them at the center now, and they have like Lakosky antennas, which are really powerful. the first time I do everything myself, the laser all the time and everything myself. And the first time I got up, when I got out, I was reorganizing my brain so much that I was a bit dizzy even. And so we've toned that down a little bit now. And so we have it nice and gentle for the kids. And so, like I say, we have Tesla technologies in there and numerous possibilities for frequency programs. So we've had a couple of trial. We had some children come just for a trial, and we found that several of them with Down syndrome, their speech and movement improved dramatically. One boy that we have been working with for a bit, and until we were able to work, we have a brain device with frequency that works on the limbic system. And he was kind of not going very far until we used that. So when we put him in the bed, it was one of my most exciting times. And he was in there and I was able, his words were "no ma." That's pretty much what he said. And while he was in there, I was able to talk with him and use a little bit of Linda Mood Bell sounding the words out. And anyway, and he was able to repeat to me almost any word that I said to him. And so we're really excited about the possibilities that this has. We're fine tuning it. We eventually hope to get to a home model that's lightweight, that could possibly be put on a massage table. And so that's one of the things I'm really excited about. And another thing I'm excited about is expanding out to the elderly. My mother, who is 90 now, has had 3 strokes. She shouldn't be walking, talking, or whatever. And she's really has a good quality of life. And so when I first went there after her stroke, she would have to sit down or she'd walk into a wall. She was very disoriented. She was, one time she was upstairs in my house and she was looking for her swimming suit. So she was so disoriented all the time. And now she's living alone right now and pretty much taking care of herself. And so we hope to be able to get the program. And as everyone's mentioned, we all can use these programs. And so we hope to help ways for the parents to incorporate it for their whole families and help. That way we can help more people.
Thank you, Bonnie. Laura, the same question for you.
So I sort of tipped my hand already that we're working on this program that can be used in any language, and that's very exciting. We also have research that has been completed that is in peer review right now that should be published. This process of publishing takes forever, but very soon. We have other ongoing research. We have international research in Africa going on that's very exciting. Large institutions, very well-known institutions in the United States are in the middle of doing some research, and that will be published in the next year and a half or so. So lots going on there. And I just want to say it's not any one of our methods. Really, we all work on something very different, and it really needs to be integrated. Somehow the 3 of us need to get together off screen and maybe do some research together about what happens when you integrate all 3 methods, even for elderly people, for autism, not only autism, but also for Alzheimer's. My wheels have been turning this whole time listening to you two, thinking the possibilities are amazing, because none of us have all the answers. Like I said, if you two were able to remove all the roadblocks to learning, they would still be years behind. They still need to catch up. So let's discuss this and maybe make next year something where we can work together. I think that is very exciting.
Yes, that would be.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've all said. And yeah, probably if I had to say something that I'm excited about.
You too, Spencer, you too. I keep on thinking you're the moderator, but you actually have so you, all 4 of us.
No, I appreciate that. Anyway, it's been a pleasure to host you all. I like to play the moderator. It's something I enjoy doing. And I have to say, it's really wonderful to just get together with like-minded people. I think in this day and age, it's kind of sad how rarely people can come together and just have a positive conversation about how to do better and how to help more people. So, thanks to all of you for joining. For me to answer my own question about what I'm excited about, I think, first of all, if anyone wants to go to the Doman International Facebook page and scroll down all the way back to July 23rd, we hosted an innovation forum, which was an internal forum with different members of our team. But we just talked about things in the last year that we've added to our method, new treatments and protocols that we've implemented that we're seeing some results with. So if people want to watch that, you're welcome to. And the thing I talk about in that innovation forum is we've added something called the Safe and Sound Protocol to our program, which I'm not sure if the other speakers have heard about it, but it's an auditory treatment program that has been used with a lot of children with autism. Interestingly, it doesn't just help kids with special needs. It can also be used with people with problems like post-traumatic stress disorder, because interestingly, a lot of people that deal with issues of vagus nerve function, which is a common issue in terms of emotional regulation, for example. So people with post-traumatic stress disorder present similar issues actually to individuals with autism. And so the program can be helpful for all those groups. And so we've started to implement it with some of our kids, and we've been very, very pleased with the results. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us. Thanks to all the parents who have come and asked really great questions. I want to kind of pre-invite all of you again for to come back next year, and we can hopefully get even more in depth in our next 10 minutes of talking. But thanks to the speakers. You're all doing wonderful work. Keep it up, and thanks for coming and sharing today. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.